Welcome back to the Two Into You podcast. I'm Madeline Campbell.
And I'm Mary Hayes. This is the show where we explore feminism, equality, relationships, dating, and pop culture. We're here to discuss the messages we've been fed about love and relationships, and hopefully reframe romance and help you spot when someone is too into you.
If you like this episode, please rate us 5 stars and leave us a comment to let us know what else you'd like to hear about.
Before we kick off, remember, if you're worried about your own relationship or even a friend's relationship, you can call the Women's Aid 24-hour national Freephone helpline on 1-800-341-900 or use the chat service at twointoyou.ie. Both are free and completely confidential. So let's get started.
So today we're going to be talking about the types of abuse that can happen in intimate relationships, the common red flags of abuse, what they look like, feel like, sound like, and we're going to hear from some of you explaining what a healthy relationship should feel like, and also talk about where to go for support. So before we dive into everything, we talk about red flags, amber flags, everything. Can you first just remind us, Mary, the different types of abuse? Because we're going to go into everything, but like, what are they so that we have that kind of base knowledge?
Yeah, I suppose we all know abuse doesn't come in one form.
Yeah.
And often we think of, physical abuse as the most common one, or the one that's like the worst, or the one that almost has to happen for it to be seen as abuse or to be taken seriously. But we know from our research in Women's Aid and, supporting survivors for over 50 years that abuse happens in lots of different ways. One of the most common ones being emotional abuse. So basically, emotional abuse is where you feel really afraid, on edge, and like your partner is putting you down all the time. They're making you feel to blame for what they're doing to you in the relationship. So it can include things like intimidation, threats, manipulation, things like gaslighting, making you feel like it's all in your head, that you're blowing things out of proportion, that if you changed your behavior, that things might go back to normal. And it's really the thing that wears down your self-confidence and makes you feel like, you can't leave.
Like you have to rely on this person for any validation because they're the only source, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it really, really gets into your head and it wears down, your self-confidence, your sense of self, your ability to listen to your gut that tells you, something doesn't feel right here. It starts to feel like you're thinking, maybe I did do something wrong, or maybe if I didn't hang out with that friend, that they wouldn't react this way.
Yeah.
Maybe if I just make sure everything around the house is organized so that, they can't point out anything. Maybe if I make sure that I look at or dress a certain way, that they'll be happy and they won't accuse me of flirting with someone else or trying to get attention from someone else. And we know that, emotional abuse has a really lasting effect because of that kind of wearing down of self-esteem.
It's also, we know, the form of abuse that happens most commonly in young relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really important that we know like the signs of emotional abuse so that you can spot them.
And if you've listened to the episode with Jodie Duggan from season 1 as well, she talks about, the impact that emotional abuse had on her. She just said she was at total rock bottom. She felt totally isolated from all of her friends. And she thought that she was going to die in that relationship, or that he was going to kill himself. So that fear, that constant walking on eggshells, and the constant kind of uncertainty was what made her feel so trapped and alone. But there's loads of other forms of abuse. So financial abuse is another one. I'll get into the kind of more details of that later. But basically, it's where somebody controls your access to money or your access to work, or makes you feel like that you have to tell them where your money's going, that they're controlling your access to finances. Stalking would be another one then. So that can happen, even before a relationship begins. If somebody is pursuing you, often this is one of the things that's pursued in pop culture. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But it can also happen then, say, after a breakup, where, they might turn up at your work, or they might figure out, what your routine is, where you're going to be throughout the day, activities or your movements online. They're checking your Instagram story all the time, so they know what you're doing, and they just seem to kind of turn up there. And that could be really, really intimidating.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Or it might be kind of framed as, them trying to get back with you, so they could just turn up with lots of flowers,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Another thing we see in movies all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, that is a form of manipulation, because really it's not giving someone a choice. Coercive control then is where there would be all different forms of abuse coming together, and it's where you feel completely trapped in the relationship and like there's no way to leave, that it's unsafe to leave, basically. So,
is it because like you don't know what's going to happen? They might react by controlling your money one week, and then they might react by like a physical violence the next, or is that what is the feeling?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, people often talk about like the cycle of abuse, but actually it's not really a cycle at all, because when you're in an abusive relationship, you don't know what's up or down, left or right. You basically
And they've made it that way.
Yes, exactly, on purpose, to make you feel unsure. It's completely unpredictable. You don't know how they're going to respond to everything. So that's why you're always changing your behaviors to try and kind of keep the peace, to try and keep things, you know, steady, to kind of just get through the day.
And keep yourself safe.
Exactly. So that's really what coercive control is. It makes you feel like you have to change your behaviors to stay safe, but also like you can't leave the relationship, and it's now a crime in Ireland. Sexual abuse then is also unfortunately quite common. So I suppose sexual abuse, we often think of it just being rape, but it includes things like sexual harassment, sexual put-downs, things like that, or somebody messaging you all the time asking for intimate images or nudes. It can also include sexual assault, so unwanted touching or groping. We've heard of things like upskirting, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Image-based sexual abuse then is another form of it, where somebody takes images or videos of you without your consent, like sexual images or videos. Or if you take them consensually and they threaten to share those later on without your consent, you know, that's a crime now under Coco's law. But I suppose sexual abuse, it often is not really understood in the context of relationships, because I suppose we think about sex just being kind of part of a relationship. I've been reading Katrina O'Sullivan's book, Hungry, recently. And when she was 16, 17, she was a young mother, basically, and she was in an abusive relationship. Her partner was very controlling. But she talks about how he really loved her, and how she was terrified of him leaving. You know, they had a kid together. So like, that's understandable. It was her first kind of serious relationship. And it was kind of the first time she had felt, you know, love in a long time, because that's what it felt like at the start, as we know. But she talks about they would be in bed together and he'd want to have sex. And in her head, she wouldn't want to, but she'd say to herself, you know, well, he'll leave you if you don't.
Yeah.
So there was kind of a feeling of, well, I'll just go along with this. But it should be where you both feel pleasure, you're both checking in on each other. It's something that you both want to do.
Yeah. She was feeling blame, like you're saying, like in every form of abuse, it's that feeling that you're doing something wrong, and that's why they're acting this way.
Yeah.
So if I do or don't have sex with him, or I do or don't wear this, then he'll leave. So it's my fault.
Yes.
Or then he'll react in a way that puts me in danger. So it's my fault.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's somebody pressuring you or guilting you into doing things sexually that you don't want to do. That's what sexual abuse is.
Yeah.
And, you know, it can come in other forms as well. Like, it could be doing things that you're not comfortable with, like, you know, overly rough sex. Like, we know that like choking has become really popular now.
Yeah.
What's actually strangulation, which is also a crime in Ireland, because you can't consent if somebody is cutting off your airways.
Yeah.
It can be fatal. Like, we've seen so many cases in the UK where girls have been killed. And in the courts, you know, often it'll be seen as something, you know, oh, well, she just liked rough sex. You know, it was a consensual act. Kind of leaning into that victim blaming stuff, you know, as well. It's like, well, she consented to it because she liked that, it was exciting. You know, that's what girls do now.
You can consent to having exciting sex, but you can't consent to somebody strangling you and killing you.
And it's so normal now. Like, how is it that, like, you know, not to be the like, back in my day, but like, you know, it was exciting, like holding hands and like having your first kiss. And now all of a sudden, like 13, 14, 15-year-olds are being strangled.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of pressure around sex just in general, and I think we've kind of talked about it before, like in our conversation about consent in the first season and just in conversations with survivors and things like this, that there's pressure to perform in a certain way, to look a certain way during sex. And also that if you are having vanilla sex, that it's bad sex.
Yeah.
But vanilla usually means that you just both sought consent and that you're both seeking pleasure.
Yeah.
And
or like there's a misunderstanding that it's like, if it's vanilla, it's not pleasurable.
Yeah,
you
which
know?
isn't true. And also stop shaming people for having vanilla sex.
Yeah, but it's like,
that's a thing.
It's not vanilla sex. It's actually a way to like shame people for talking about their pleasure and their
Yes.
needs and communicating.
Yeah.
I think actually it's just a way to shame women being open and vocal about what they need.
Mhm.
And by saying, well, because you don't like that, it's vanilla. You know, saying to a woman, oh, you don't want to be strangled? Well, you sound pretty boring.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy that has become the norm now. Mainstream porn has had a big impact on this, especially for young people. Like, that is where they are picking up so much of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we know that the majority of mainstream
It's affected
porn,
everyone.
It's affected everyone.
Yeah.
You know, it's teaching young people what they're supposed to be doing in sex, you know, like women laying back and just letting it all happen to them, and that it's really pleasurable when someone like slaps and hits and chokes them, and you know, I'm not even going to go into all the different types, but you know, it's totally hijacked, I think, young people's ability to have like meaningful intimate relationships.
Yeah.
Because we're not saying that like young people shouldn't be having sex. They are having sex. We've always known this. It's more that it's like they should be able to feel safe and not feel all this pressure from a multi-billion euro industry who is profiting off of women being
subjected to violence.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think with all of this is that we've started to normalize that violence. And like, again, violence isn't just like actually hitting someone. Violence is like putting them down or controlling how they move about in the world. That is violent behavior.
Yeah.
And with all of it, it's like this normalization of that abuse, that is like something we should expect, that is something that like we're told is romantic, that is something that, oh, well, like in a relationship, you have to do X, Y, Z because that's just what you do.
Yeah. And it should be what we should be striving for, and it's acceptable. Another thing Katrina O'Sullivan says in her book is, it was a really good quote. She said, it's not like exactly the quote, but it's basically, some love is better than no love. So it was like, even though the love came with conditions of abuse and control, it was better than no love at all.
Yeah.
Which is horrible.
It's terrible, yeah.
One of the ways that we know that this happens is obsession. So this idea that, you know, well, they want to be with me, they want to have me close, but we know that this is often like weaponized for control.
Definitely.
Another thing that happens around sex is, you know, they say, well, you're all talk, you know, you're all mouth, you've led me on, you're a tease. And if you've kind of done that, then you don't have a right to like step back and say,
I don't want to have sex with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like another thing that Katrina O'Sullivan talks about in her book is that she was like giving her partner oral sex, and like it was the first time she'd done it.
Yeah.
And afterwards he had an orgasm. He said, then, you're really good at that. You've obviously done that before. Who did you do it with? Who is he?
Yeah.
And immediately into like lies and accusing her of like cheating and like making her feel to blame for his pleasure that he guilted her into in the first place.
Yeah.
So like, imagine when you're like 16, 17 and somebody is playing those mind games.
Shocking.
So confusing.
And that is the thing with abuse, is like, it's just such a mind game. You can never win. You can never do the right thing, because even if it was last time, it was like, okay, if I have sex with him, then we won't get in an argument. This time, if you have sex with him, you are getting into an argument.
Yeah.
It's so confusing and so isolating and so dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And
there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do to change it.
Because it's someone else doing those things.
Yeah,
and the only way it'll stop is if they stop abusing you.
Exactly.
Are there any other things you've seen recently?
The movie that everyone's talking about is Obsession. Like, it's in the title. And like, I won't get into the storyline or anything, but like, it's in so many pieces of media. Like, I have started looking at the like movies that I turn to, like when I'm like sick and I need a comfort watch, and it'll be like a rom-com or whatever. And it's like, oh, I'm like actively being fed this information that for me to have a fulfilling relationship, a man has to be obsessed with me, and I really don't have a say in whether or not I'm obsessed, in quotes. You know what I'm saying? If I like him back, basically.
We often see it in pop culture and like movies and TV shows. I know we've talked about The Notebook before and how like Noah being so obsessed with Ali is supposed to be like the greatest love story of all time, when actually he's just a bit of a stalker and a weirdo.
Yeah. The conversation is really that obsession is romantic, that them showing up at your door, that them always needing to be by you, that them texting you constantly, being in constant contact, knowing all of your friends, knowing like where you are at all times is this form of love and care.
Yeah.
But it's not, control is not caring, and obsession is a form of control.
Yes.
Because it's being so concerned with who you're talking to, where you are going, what you are wearing, because they feel they have the right to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't. No one has a right to you, to your body, to your finances, to who you are at all. But that obsession is that like need for control over you. And that's why it's not romantic.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to think it is because
it's
they
everywhere.
sell the like idealized
marketable.
Version. It's so marketable.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like buy them 1 million flowers.
Yeah.
Well, who's making money? The flower guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're not having a good time. The flower guy is.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah.
And we know that this is a really common tactic of abuse. Like, have you heard of the boiling a frog theory?
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, the idea that if you want to boil a frog, you can't just put it straight into a pot of boiling water because it'll jump straight out. But if you put it into cold water and slowly turn up the heat, you know, it won't realize that it's being boiled alive, basically.
Yeah, because it's normalizing this behavior.
Exactly. And it's almost creating this nice, you know, cool environment at the start. Maybe, you know, you're putting the lid on because the water is really cold and you want it to seem safe and lovely and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, you're cold. Let me turn up the heat a little bit for you.
Yeah.
So it's the same in abusive relationships. You know, no one will get straight into an abusive relationship because you would jump straight out.
Yeah.
If all those red flags were straight there, you just wouldn't want to be with that person.
Yeah.
That's why it doesn't happen straight away. It happens with things like obsession, with love bombing, somebody wanting to move really fast, saying that I've never met anyone like you, you're my soulmate.
Yeah.
My exes were crazy, you know, you're different to them, paying for everything. Wanting to spend all your time together, all the constant texts, like showering you with attention and affection.
Yeah.
And like these are the things that feel so lovely, especially when you're young. And
especially when you're told that you're supposed to feel lovely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that like it's all the stuff we see in movies and TV shows and everything. So it's like, yeah, well, this is normal. And, you know, we're telling our friends, oh, you know, he did this, he did that. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. Oh my God, great. You know, so that's why it's so hard to kind of spot it. But then later on, when the behavior turns abusive, so when the water is getting hotter, it can start to feel like, well, it's not abuse, it's maybe this is a relationship problem that we need to work on together.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that I'm doing wrong, or maybe they're stressed at work, maybe they're having a hard time, and you start to excuse it because they're excusing it, and they weren't like that at the start, and they're not like that all the time. It sets a really good, you know, foundation, unfortunately, for things like gaslighting, you know, kind of downplaying what's happening, making you feel like it's in your head, like you're being dramatic, like you're going crazy.
Yeah. Juliana was talking about this in her episode as well. She talked about this, like, I just thought he was obsessed with me and like that is what I wanted. And I, you know, when he would start to do things that I didn't really like, at first I would kind of push back and be like, no, like I need to go see my friends.
Yeah.
But then it got easier for her and safer for her to just stop seeing those friends and like be at his house all the time and be in his space and being watched and like being monitored 24/7, because it was easier than to be subjected to abuse.
And like that's not something that people should feel bad for. Like we all want to be loved, right?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be loved, thought of, cared for. Like that is a very normal human emotion and need.
Yes.
So like that is so understandable that you would allow yourself to be vulnerable and to get into a relationship with somebody who's treating you like that.
Yeah.
So it's not your fault if you have been trapped by somebody who has done this to you.
Exactly.
Because it feels really nice at the start.
Yeah.
And it can feel really nice throughout it.
Yeah. It's really nice when you get a text from a friend being like, let me know when you're home. Like, just want to make sure you get home safe after you've been on a night out. It's definitely nice, like, when you are like, hey, boyfriend, girlfriend, I'm going out tonight. Like, I'm going to be with my friends. And they're like, that's so great. Have a good time. Shoot me a text if you need anything.
Yeah.
That is care.
Yeah.
Control, obsession is text me every single time you go to a new pub. Who are you talking to?
Where are you now?
Where are you now? Are you in the taxi? Are you on your way to my house? I'm just going to come and get you. I'm coming to the pub. I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe I'll come along.
Maybe I'll come
tag
along.
Who's going to be there? Are you talking to other lads?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's not always sinister because, like you're saying, it does feel nice at the start when someone is offering you that attention and like this idea of care that can feel really, really good.
Yeah.
But care isn't overprotection or obsession or control.
Yeah.
Care is just genuinely caring about your well-being and safety, which is
Exactly.
like, hey, like if you need anything, like just give me a call. I'm here if you need me.
Yeah, it doesn't come with consequences.
Yes.
So like with your friends, say you forget to, I do this all the time. My friends are like, text me again when you get home. And then I get home and I go to sleep. And the next morning I was like, whoops, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You're not worried with your friends if you don't text them back that there's going to be repercussions.
Yes.
That if you don't text them back, that they're going to give you the silent treatment, they're going to, not talk to you for days, or they're going to fly off the handle, or they're going to accuse you of lying or cheating or, doing something else, talking to someone else, going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen with your friends, but in a controlling relationship, that's what will happen. So typically you'll probably text them back straight away because you're afraid of what will happen.
Yeah.
You don't know how they're going to respond, basically.
Yeah.
And if you don't text them back, that there will be some sort of repercussions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really confusing. But one of the things, you were saying about Juliana was, the cutting off from friends. And we know as well that isolation is another really common tactic of abuse. So the whole thing with isolation basically is where your partner will not want you to spend time with friends or family. They don't want you to spend time away from the relationship. They'll want to basically monopolize all of your time. And the whole idea is to make you completely dependent on them. Because I suppose then it traps you where it feels like you've no one to talk to outside of the relationship.
Yeah.
And everything that's happening just becomes the norm.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe to the people on the outside, because they're not seeing or experiencing the pattern, they're just seeing things here and there. And they're thinking, oh, well, that's not normal. That's not okay. But it's almost like they're the frog going straight into the boiling water. Whereas you're the one who's been in it from cold, to hot. So it just feels like it's part of the relationship now, or like a relationship problem that we have. So it makes it really difficult to, to seek support, to talk to a friend, because maybe you never have time to yourself, or they're demanding to look through your phone, wanting to know who you talk to, or they know all your passwords. So they're looking at your phone behind your back.
Yeah.
Or making you feel like you have to kind of tell them who you're with or where you are all the time.
Yeah. And they can do it in like kind of sneaky ways as well, because it doesn't always sound like, give me your phone right now. Now, it definitely can.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely can. But it might also sound like, let's do our snaps together this evening.
Yeah.
And then they can see every single person that you've been with.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, okay, I'm actually planning on going out this weekend with my best friend. Like, we wanted to like go on a walk. And he's like, oh, well, I thought that like we were going to have like a really romantic date night because like I've been like at work all week and I haven't gotten to see you. Why don't you want to spend time with me?
Or surprise, I planned something.
Or surprise, I planned something. And like at first, oh, okay, like, yeah, maybe I'll stay home. And it just becomes easier and easier and easier.
Yeah, it becomes easier to almost, because you're not sure again how they'll react. Because at the start, it feels really nice. It's like, oh, they planned something lovely. And then later on, it becomes harder to like say no because, there have been consequences where you have, say, hung out with friends or cancelled on them. They make you feel bad. They make you feel guilty. Like you're not in it in the relationship as much as they are.
Yeah.
And you feel like you need to kind of like prove your love to them almost.
Yeah. I feel like there a lot of the times on social media, accounts that are maybe run by women who have previously experienced abuse will talk a lot about this, how it's like, I didn't even realize I was being isolated.
Yeah.
Because it was like, they'd pick a fight right before I went out. So it's not that I wasn't allowed to go out, but that my whole entire experience of my night out with my friends was absolutely ruined because we got into a terrible fight before.
Yeah.
So it was easier to just stay home the next time.
Exactly.
Or
I think it's easier to not see them.
Yes.
Is really the way that control is kind of
maintained and like continued.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it kind of makes you feel like it's your fault.
Yeah.
because it's like, well, I chose not to go out or not to see them.
Yeah. And that's why I don't have friends. And so I don't deserve support.
Yeah.
And I deserve what's happening to me. But
Yeah.
obviously that's not true. You deserve both to be trusted and your own freedom, but also like you do deserve support if this is happening too.
Yeah, exactly. I have a quote here from a survivor, and she talks about isolation. So, he damaged my confidence so much that I believed him, that it was my fault for what he was doing to me. I didn't want anyone to know what was happening in case they also blamed me. When family did guess what was happening, they just wanted me to leave. They didn't understand that he had made it impossible for me to leave. He wanted to control everything I did. When I didn't stand up to him, they got annoyed and pulled back. I felt judged. I knew they felt sorry for me, but I didn't want their pity. So it was easier for me to stay away from them. They didn't know how much danger I was in. He told me multiple times he would kill himself if I left. He said he'd take my son away and that I'd never see him again. And I believed him. So, you know, she says like she felt obviously judged by him and to blame by him for his behavior, which is gaslighting, emotional abuse.
Yep.
And then she also felt that blame from her family for not doing anything. She also talks about, you know, she says, I did absolutely everything I could.
Yeah.
You know, I changed my behavior. I stopped seeing people. I made sure everything was okay. I, you know, catered to all of his needs, but it didn't do anything. It didn't change anything. It only stopped when he decided to stop abusing her, when he actually met someone else.
Wow.
So, you know, it's like abuse is a choice that somebody chooses to do this pattern of controlling behaviors to have their needs met.
Yeah.
Because it makes life easier for them. So like that is case in point, like why isolation works so much, because it just means that you become totally dependent and that your whole life revolves around your partner.
Yeah.
So they then
And
get
meeting their
everything they
needs.
need.
With isolation, when you become totally dependent on someone, that can include things like your finances, where you know, it's easier to let them have control of your bank account, or like, oh, they want to spend all their time with me, I have to leave my job because if I don't, there's going to be consequences.
Yeah.
And financial abuse is something that I don't think we talk a lot about, like in general. I think it's something that a lot of people maybe don't understand. And I think currently the conversations online about being in your soft girl era, girlfriend treatment, etc. Happy to talk more about that in a moment.
Yeah.
Have like really, again, normalized
And
this form of
romanticized.
and romanticized this form of abuse. And I think with this podcast, all I've realized is that abuse is totally normalized and totally romanticized in every kind of conversation that we have in the general world. So what is financial abuse? What is it that makes someone have to be dependent on their abuser?
So yeah, financial abuse is one of the things that, especially in like the current economy, right? Or like the current state of the world. There's a cost of living crisis, there's a housing crisis.
Yep.
Financial independence is so important, particularly for women, because it gives you more options. You know, it gives you the option to move about the world as you need to, to, you know, get a taxi if you need to in safety, to put credit in your phone, to be able to buy the things that you need for yourself or for your kids, you know, for your education.
People aren't even starting with that freedom to begin with.
Yeah.
People who end up in abusive relationships may never have had access to the financial needs that they needed. So if someone is able to provide that for them,
exactly,
why would they leave? Even though they're being subjected to terrible abuse,
they have stability.
They have some form of stability.
Bang on, that's such a good point. So like some of the ways that it happens will be, you know, they'll control your access to work, okay? So that could either be telling you you're too stupid to get a job, you know, that you're not educated enough, that you'd be bad at it, or say, you know, why even bother? Like, I'll pay for things. Or again, like that princess treatment thing, stay-at-home girlfriend, the child life thing. It's like, you know, I want to be the man, I want to be the provider. You know, we talked about this in the Manosphere episode. Let me do that. I want to be the leader.
You be in your feminine.
You be in your feminine.
I'll be in my masculine.
Yeah. It's like, well, okay, you can do that, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to, that you're not entitled to work or to your like basic human rights and freedoms.
Yeah.
So it can be somebody saying, well, you don't have to work, or maybe reduce your hours and I'll pay for things, or I'll look after the bills. You know, maybe letters are coming in the post and you don't even have a chance to look at them because they're like, I'll look after that.
Yeah.
or maybe they're criticizing the work that you're doing. So, if you think about Gabby Petito, the girl who was killed in America, who was traveling around with her boyfriend in a van. There's a documentary on Netflix about it. She got a job in
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, yeah. And she loved it.
Yeah.
She had really good friends there, gave her a really good sense of independence. She could really be herself there. But he would basically make fun of her for it. He was like, you're a waster. Like, why are you spending your time there? Like, it's such a loser job. Think about what that would do to your confidence,
Yeah.
But actually what it was doing was it was controlling her access to finances, her financial freedom, and her access to seek safety as well if she needed it, you know? Or they'll say things, like, you hate your job anyway, you should just quit. Or why even bother working there? It's a shit place to work.
Yeah.
Or it could be other things like, they make you buy things for them, or they'll rack up debt in your name.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you are the provider, but they're taking out credit cards in your name and spending it on who knows what.
Yeah. Or constantly being like, oh, you get this, I'll get you back, and never doing it. And just accruing all that like money that they owe you.
Yeah.
And then, you feel bad then that you have to constantly ask them. And, then they're saying, well, I'm just having a hard time at the moment. I'll get it back to you. You don't have to nag me. Like, why you always blah. And we see it go on and on and on.
Yes.
Jodie Duggan, one of our survivor ambassadors, she talks as well about how her ex would hide her bank card all the time.
Oh my God.
So, she wouldn't be able to get a taxi. He would hide her keys. So that could be hiding, your house keys, hiding your bank card, your leap card. So you're not able to even get a bus or anything like that. If you have kids together, them refusing to make child payments, child maintenance. They could steal your money. That could just be simply like taking cash out of your wallet, demanding that you hand over benefits, criticizing how you look. So, kind of leaning into the expectations that are put on women to look a certain way.
Sorry. You're so smart.
So, like putting you down saying, oh, you've gained weight, or, you could really do with a little something here and here. You look better when you do this. And then you have to put all this money into looking a certain way.
Paying for a gym membership, getting mini Botox,
get
like
nails,
being
hair,
on whatever. Yeah, nails, hair, new clothes, etc., etc. So that you can...
So you can meet their expectations.
Meet their expectations and their standards. But their standards are ridiculous.
And then you're constantly chasing those standards because they're never going to actually say you look well, or if they do, it's fleeting, and then they continue to criticize you, and you're constantly chasing that, well, maybe they'll treat me well, or maybe they'll love me if I do this or this or this. So they're playing into basically the inequalities that women face around our bodies and our appearance.
100%. And that also goes to show that like abuse can take any form in a relationship. It cannot look a certain way. It looks all kinds of ways, and they all can feed into each other, because financial abuse feeds into isolation, which feeds into emotional abuse, which feeds into physical violence. Like there are so many, it's all
linked. And actually I was talking to my friend about this recently because I was asking her about like the dating apps.
Yeah.
And she was like, the very first thing that people say are, do you go to the gym? So this whole thing about physical appearance, like it's like basically the first like hurdle. And it's like, if you don't, it's very like shaming, or people won't even engage. Like you were saying earlier, like you have to have all this time to do all these things. So in order to go to the gym, to get your nails done, your hair done, to eat right, like do your meditation.
There's a certain amount of privilege you have to even begin to access.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This cultural currency.
Yeah, currency, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Cultural capital.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have to have all this time, all these finances to do these things. And if you don't, like that's the first thing, well, you're not even worth engaging with in the first place. But say you are doing those things in a relationship. And I think typically those things are things that people are doing, say, in their late 20s. They're starting to make a little bit more money. And these are people who have that privilege in the first place. But say later on, if a woman has, a child, and then she's carrying the majority of caring responsibilities, maybe she's like trying to juggle work and everything, just everything in her life. How then are you expected to do all the other things that we're supposed to do as women? Then it's your fault, and that can become a tool then for abuse and control.
Can I read this quote, though, that I found about financial abuse? Because I thought it was really powerful because of the conversations that we see online about like being in your feminine, being soft girl, girlfriend treatment, et cetera, et cetera. So the quote was from this creator: Some women with no income and no savings are one argument away from being homeless. And then the caption is saying, this is why financial independence isn't optional. Social media loves to romanticize being taken care of, that you don't have stress, no pressure, just existing and being provided for. And in theory, that sounds beautiful. But the soft girl life being sold online skips the part where your access to housing, food, healthcare, and basic stability is tied to someone else continuing to choose you. And I just think
so good.
It's so like, and there's so much more on it. And she kind of goes deeper into what financial abuse is. But it is that it's like, if you don't meet that standard for them, if you're not meeting their needs, and if you're not, having sex with them when they say they're not going to pay the rent this month. And that is a terrifying place for someone to be in. And that is so difficult for someone experiencing that. And
and then it's exacerbated by things like the housing crisis.
Exactly.
Like if you do become homeless, like trying to find housing is so difficult.
Yeah.
Especially when you're young, you know. Another example would be, say, sabotaging your career and your education. So again, another example of financial abuse in young relationships, you're leaving school, maybe you're going to college or you're starting your first job. And again, they're saying, well, you're not smart enough, for that, making you doubt yourself, all this stuff. And then that has this knock-on effect.
Before we came in to record, I did put up a thing where people could ask a question, and we got a couple, but they were all saying the same thing, which is like, how do you know if it's actually a red flag, or if it's like an amber flag, or if it is just something that's romantic? Like, do I need to be constantly hypervigilant? That's kind of like the sentiment of these questions.
Yeah.
So is it always easy to spot a red flag is the first question.
No, it's not. The thing is, in isolation, these things, they will happen in other relationships. But the thing with abuse is it's a pattern of controlling behaviors. And one person will always have the control and all the power in the relationship over the other person. One person is choosing to carry out those patterns of abusive behaviors.
Yeah.
But, there might be things that happen in your relationship where, your partner will mess up and maybe they might text you a few times and be annoying.
Yeah.
But it's about if it's happening over and over again and you feel afraid and like you're walking on eggshells, not sure how your partner will react, feeling like you have to check in with them, feeling like you're not sure what will happen if you hang out with your friends, if you do something, if you talk to a certain person, and always like basically they kind of make the decisions in the relationship.
The thing also about red flags not necessarily being easy to spot, with that, there's a lot of stigma around why people might be in a relationship, or like, why don't they leave? Like, I can see that red flag. How did they not see that red flag?
Yeah, or I'd never get into, if I saw that, I'd leave straight away.
Yes, because also like with these conversations online, there's this like clap back to the fact that like, I would never be in a financially abusing situation, or I would never get into a relationship with somebody who said this to me, or somebody who told me I couldn't go out with my friends. But actually you might. And that is scary, but it's something to note and something to know when we are walking about in the world, because 1 in 3 women are survivors of abuse, victims of abuse.
Yeah. You never know who around you is going to be going through this.
Exactly.
So I suppose it's important for us in person and online to not lean in or play into victim blaming.
Yeah.
Saying I would just leave, I'd be able to spot it. And I think a lot of us maybe are would say, I'd be confident to spot the red flags of abuse.
Yes.
But it's more about having like compassion and understanding that this can and does happen to anyone, and that abuse happens really slowly over time. It's really subtle. It can be really hard to spot. And like people who abuse can be very good at manipulating other people. And it's
they can
very
be charming, personable, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it was that bad, why don't they leave? Because you don't really know the reality of what is going on and what their stability is, or if they have a support system.
Or what's happening. And, when we were talking about isolation, that's one of the things. They isolate you so that the abuse can remain in private, because no one will truly understand what it is you're going through or what you're being put through and how confusing and frightening it can be. But also, there will be moments where your abuser will give you hope.
Exactly. They make promises, or they tell you that they're going to change, or I really love you, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that can feel good and hopeful. Like, okay, we can turn this around.
Yeah. Exactly. Because again, it's so normal to want to be loved and cared for that people do try and fix things and try and, stay in the relationship to work through it, especially if you've kids, if you've a home, if you're married, or maybe your visa status is dependent on them. Maybe your financial situation is dependent on them. If you're disabled, maybe they're caring for you. So there are multiple reasons why it's not just easy to leave. It's not just about leaving, because we also know leaving doesn't stop the abuse. And actually leaving can be the most dangerous time, particularly for a woman to leave. Jenny Poole, who was killed by her partner, she was just 24. They had broken up and he broke into her house and killed her in her home. The abuse will often get much worse after they leave because the abuser has lost the power and control. You've taken some power back by saying, I'm removing myself from this situation. So they will amp things up because they want to have you back in their power again. So it's not just as easy as leaving. But I suppose we have to remember it's not all about the efforts that you need to make to leave and get out of it.
Yes.
Because again, it puts that responsibility onto you. And that's why it's not weak. It doesn't mean that you're not capable if you reach out to a support like Women's Aid or use the chat service at 2and2.ie.
Or even just talk to a friend about it.
Exactly. Because actually you do not just deserve support, but you need support. Because there is somebody who has stripped everything away from you. They have cut down all your self-esteem, your resources, your supports, everything that you need to not just thrive, but like survive. So you actually do need people around you to give you that help out of that situation.
But we're going to wrap up, but we'll wrap up with a little bit more hope and talk a bit about healthy relationships and also some good news that's happening in the world, because it can be really difficult to hear about abuse. It can be obviously difficult if you're experiencing abuse, and sometimes what you need is hope. We asked people out and about in town and at some festivals that we were at what they think a healthy relationship should be.
I think a relationship should make you feel independent and comfortable. I think it's very important for two people to have their own lives and then also together, rather than sharing the same, we like this, we like that. You need to be independent yourself.
Yeah, I love that one because it's like you can be your own person, and it's way more exciting if you're your own people. You have your own friend groups, you have your own activities, your own hobbies, your own things that you're interested in. And then you can come together and share those things with each other.
Exactly. You were an individual before you met them, and you should still be able to be an individual alongside them.
Absolutely. And you support each other in doing that.
I think validated. I think your person should always make you feel seen, make you feel heard.
I think not being afraid to ask about boundaries or talk about that. I think that's really important. And I think that makes you feel safe.
Yeah, this is such an important one. But it's so funny, again, when we ask people about healthy relationships, they say, that they respect my boundaries. And then if you ask them, what are your boundaries? People
don't know
because they've never taken the time to actually sit down and do it. But I think the very first step before that is just getting to know yourself, spending time on your own, whether that's at home or out in the world, taking yourself to the cinema or for a walk or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And actually doing it mindfully and checking in with yourself to think, okay, what do I like? What am I comfortable with? When are moments where I feel uncomfortable? And when I do feel uncomfortable, what does that feel like in my body? And when I feel good, what does that feel like in my body? So just really connecting to yourself and getting to know yourself more and more. And then actually taking some time to read about boundaries, watch some videos on TikTok, read some articles, read some blogs, head to 2and2.ie, learn about boundaries and healthy relationships, and then thinking about, okay, what does that mean for me? I think it's a really important practice, especially as you're growing up, it's something we never take time to actually do and learn.
And a lot of time people will say you have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. But part of that is just knowing your boundaries.
Yeah.
And also you can be reflecting on boundaries, and they can change and evolve as
Yeah.
you are in a relationship. And what's important and what a healthy relationship does is actually respect that and say,
Yeah.
okay, last week you said this, but actually you're saying this now. I totally get you.
How can I help you feel like comfortable in that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what people have said a couple of times in these quotes is that you feel seen and you feel heard. And I think that that is such a good foundation for what a healthy relationship is.
Yeah.
And they do everything they can to make you feel safe and comfortable.
And they're making you feel seen and safe and comfortable because they want you to feel loved and safe, not because they want to control you.
I really like when a relationship makes me feel safe. Like, I feel like that's my top priority. Like, I want to make sure I can feel like myself whenever I talk to them and be able to have a conversation where I don't feel judged.
Yeah, I love that. You know, typically when we ask people like, what does a healthy relationship mean to you? They always say communication.
Mhm.
And I also kind of like want to dig in more. Like, what do they actually mean? Like, what does that sound like?
Yeah, because communication can be nasty and rude and horrible and abusive.
Yeah.
So does communication actually mean what
It's-
this person is saying? I can come to them with anything without feeling judged, without there being consequences, and that we can have honest conversations about what makes us feel good and what makes us feel safe.
Yeah. And you can like have disagreements and you can have differing opinions and you like listen to each other and are interested in the other's thoughts and opinions and feelings.
Mhm.
And you can like work together on it and there's no judgment and it's open and respectful. Okay, let's talk about some good news. There's been, unfortunately, some horrific cases recently of violence against women and children in Ireland, but there's also been some really good developments around legal protections, thankfully. So the first one being Jenny's Law was passed by the Dáil. So it was named in honour of Jennifer Poole, who was killed at the age of 24 by her ex-partner, Gavin Murphy. Her family did a lot of campaigning for this, basically, particularly her brother, Jason Poole, because he had a history of domestic violence that they didn't know about. She was led to believe that he was living in Spain before they had met, but actually he was in prison. So this will be Ireland's very first domestic violence registry. So somebody who's thinking about entering a relationship with someone or who's in a relationship with someone can check a registry if somebody has been convicted of domestic violence. So we're still kind of learning like how that'll actually work and where the registry will be and things like that, but it'll definitely help around some transparency, hopefully, and give people some power in those relationships as well. Another great thing that happened was Valerie's Law. This is crazy that this wasn't already in law.
I was genuinely shocked when they were like, new law in Ireland. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. So this was named after Valerie French, who was killed by her husband in 2019. And basically it says that if somebody kills the other parent of your children, that they don't automatically get guardianship rights to those children. Because this was something that her family had campaigned about. They had children together and her brother was really afraid that when he got out of prison that he would get guardianship over them. So now that says that that won't happen, thankfully. Another piece of legislation then that came in is the sex for rent law. So it's now illegal to seek sexual favors or sexual acts from somebody in exchange for rent or accommodation.
Or even like a discount on rent. It is illegal.
Yeah. So it was put in place because there was a lot of growing concerns around, you know, alleged landlords and rental providers seeking sexual services, particularly from women in exchange
and people who
for
were
rent.
already vulnerable, like looking for housing.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly people who are already facing discrimination and find it hard to find housing in the first place, like migrant women. So yeah, this is something that was very much needed. And then finally, there's proposed legislation to ban violent pornography in Ireland as well. So it includes things like portraying scenes of degradation, sexual violence, torture, murder, necrophilia, and bestiality for the purpose of sexual arousal. So this is really positive. I mean, we've already talked about the harms of pornography for young people in particular, and what they're learning and seeing online. So yeah, I suppose these are all things that, you know, Women's Aid have been campaigning on. There have been other organisations and families and survivors working on this. So it is great to finally have some wins.
Yeah, it's so positive to know that the legal system also wants to protect survivors as well from these things.
Exactly. We will be keeping an eye on how things are progressing and being implemented, because being on paper is one thing, but actually them being actioned is another. So that's our episode. Hopefully you found some of it helpful. Please do leave us a 5-star review and a comment. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about. And thank you for listening. We'll catch you at the next one. Remember, we're always here for you. Whatever your question might be, we're here to help at 2intoyou.ie.
And if you're worried about your own relationship or even a friend's relationship, you can call the Women's Aid 24-hour national Freephone helpline on 1-800-341-900 or use the chat service at 2intoyou.ie. Both are free and completely confidential.
Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow the 2 Into You podcast wherever you get your podcasts. A new episode drops the first Monday of every month. See you next time.